Hello, everyone. Happy Sunday and welcome to Inside D2Football along with Coach Poe, Justin Pelizzi, D2Football, Matt Witwicky, or whatever his Twitter handle is, Wit D2Football. I lose track of it. It's something like that.
I don't even know what it is.
I don't know. Tony Nicolette's Twitter handle is even harder to remember, and D2K Ferg. We are here to recap round 2 of the Division II playoffs. And guys, it was just 2 weeks ago that we were here with 32 teams vying for the national championship. We are already down to just 8. 2 teams in each region. So we have regional finals coming up this week. Of course, next week we'll be previewing national semifinals and the championship game coming up in just a couple of weeks' time. So until then, we still have a whole list of games to recap from yesterday. We had 8 in total, 2 per region. We'll walk you through each one of those, talk about them, the outcomes, talk through some of the things that led to the outcomes of those games, go through a couple of photos just to help tell the story a little bit, and then we will look at the preview of our regional finals coming up this coming weekend. So still lots to do in the remaining couple of weeks that we have with just unbelievable, guys. We only have 7 games total left in this season.
That is crazy.
Yeah, it's when we start off at the front end of the season and we've got all this in front of us. It's a long way to the end of the season, but now we're down to just 7 games total in the 2025 season. So let's actually start by reviewing our current state of the bracket. So we'll kind of go region by region. This is just for quick updates, and then we'll dive into the game. So Super Region 1 comes down to Kutztown and Frostburg State. So you're going to see as we go through this, we do have all 4 number 1 seeds are still in the tournament. However, 3 of those number 1 seeds are playing unseeded teams this coming weekend. So kind of wild how, at the top half of the bracket, things have somewhat gone the way we expect, but not so much elsewhere. We have no number 4 seeds left. We have no number 2 seeds left. And just 1 number 3 seed. So really interesting how that shook out. So in Super Region 1, we have Kutztown hosting Frostburg State this coming Saturday for the SR1 championship. And we go to Region 2, the total outlier in SR2, where we actually have 2 seeded teams taking on one another. We have the top seed Albany State playing at home. They defeated Benedict for the 6th time this season, and they will take on Newberry, who took out West Florida on the road. So we've got a 1 and a 3 in Super Region 2. And if we go to 3, look at that MAV logo there staring at us again, guys. They're at it once more, just kind of, getting in at the very end of the playoff field. And then here they are getting down to the regional final, and they are going to take on the defending national champs, Ferris State. Fascinating matchup that we will see this coming weekend at Top Taggart. And then on to Super Region 4, where we have Harding, of course, number 1 seed as well. They took out another MIAA co-champ 2 weeks in a row. They took out the MIAA co-champs, and they're going to face UT Permian Basin, another unseeded team making their way through the bracket. So I don't know, guys, overall kind of reactions on this. Tony, I know you were really busy kind of watching all the games yesterday and keeping track of things. When you kind of look at just the state of the bracket right now, what are a couple of things that kind of stand out to you?
Well, I have to give a salute to Coach Hoffner and Minnesota State. I think you coined it perfectly, the kind of at it again. I also can't believe on our region shows we've never talked about how this was the region that went to the dogs, because there were 5 different dog mascots in here. 3 of them were Bulldogs, but I digress. So I'm really impressed with Coach Hoffner, the work he did. I got to give a tip to Frostburg State. We kind of kept doubting them a little bit. They found a way to make it all the way to the region final and prove that, hey, last year was last year, when they kind of fell apart at the end of the year. This is a different year. This is a different team, obviously a capable team. I also was really impressed with Newberry knocking off what I think a lot of us felt maybe was the best team in Super Region 2 in West Florida, and doing it on the road. And we'll talk more about unpacking that game in a little bit. So I think in general, we're seeing, Ferris is Ferris, Harding is Harding. But I think we're starting to see, too, that like in Super Region 3, to go back to my kind of neck of the woods, the Northern Sun is probably, up there with the GLIAC as one of the stronger conferences. And we start to see that play out again where, whoever is at the top end of that league is going to be somebody that's going to have to be reckoned with. And so sometimes it doesn't matter if you put teams on the road; they're going to find a way to win ball games and keep playing.
Yeah, absolutely. No doubt about it. So some fascinating results from yesterday. And of course, we'll hear from everybody here pretty soon. But Tony, I know you were really busy keeping track of everything. So I wanted some overall perspective from you.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and start reviewing the top games from yesterday. And I guess we need to start here because this was probably the matchup. The second week in a row, I think this matchup probably had the most attention on it, with Harding taking on one of the MIAA co-champs.
I would say so. And, given a watch of this game, Chuck, the Harding just went ahead and started it off in fairly dramatic fashion with a 17-play, 99-yard drive that took up almost 10 minutes off the clock. I mean, holy death by paper cut. And so, you watch that and
the game felt over.
Yeah.
It was one of those things where it's like, okay, so they're going to make this going to be a quick half. And it was, it was 20-0 Harding at half. And, it kind of felt like it took longer for their dominance to occur in this game, in my opinion. It felt like Pitt was holding on a little bit better. But then by the time we got to the back half of the contest, we got to 37-7 after 3 quarters. And, if we're going to be honest, Pitt scores 2, kind of garbage time scores late. Now, I'm not saying that Harding didn't care, because I got the impression that coach wasn't thrilled about the fact that they were leaky in that 4th quarter. But, a few things I need to point on out is, for example, a Braden Jay, he finally gets himself to the minimum carry number for his career, and ends up, he's averaging 12 yards a touch for his career, which is now a new NCAA record. Pretty impressive when you think about that, because he's now amassed a lot of carries, not just, a smaller sample size and things of that sort. But at the same time, you look at Andrew Miller, continues to be their workhorse, gets another 3 scores. And it felt like Pitt did not have anything for them offensively until it was just flat out too late. And we kind of thought that coming into this year, Chuck, at least that they had gotten a little more electric in the passing game. They would be able to offer a little bit more resistance with this version of them. But at the end of the day, it had a similar feel to it. I realized the final score was a lot closer than it was last year, because it was like 48-6 last year or something like that. But at the end of the day, when you're down 30 after 3 quarters, it's essentially the same kind of thing. That was my take.
Yeah, I thought so too, Whit. And I will say, Coach Anthony said afterwards, he was asked about, what do you think you need to do to, to compete with Harding and Ferris? Yep. And, he had said, very candidly, we're not quite there yet, but they're very committed to figuring out how to be, a team that can compete and win at a place like Harding or Ferris State as they go forward. And obviously scheduling the types of games that they have is going to help them prepare to do that. So overall, Whit, I know you watch the MIAA very, very closely. Still another very successful season here for the Gorillas.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing that's easy to get lost, when these teams face up with Harding, is the fact that, Harding is having their way with folks here in the playoffs, like they have in the last few years. But at the same time, guys, Pitt started off 0-2, and we weren't sure if they were going to make the playoffs this year and everything else. And they really rallied from that point and won 10 straight. And, finally got themselves in this spot. And, this is obviously something that's not perfect, is the fact that we have number 4 and number 2 that we have in our poll. And I think that's not a whole lot different than the coaches meeting this early in the tournament. We're not going to adjudicate that tonight, but at the same time, it's still something a little bit disheartening. But I'm not sure at the end of the day. Right now, we have 2 teams, in my opinion, that are so head and shoulders above everybody else that as long as they're not in the same bracket, you know what? everyone right now is just kind of getting in Harding, and Ferris's way. So that's kind of how I see it.
All right. Before we move on from this, guys, just want to open up if there's anything else you want to say about that game. There's a couple of shots. It did look like I only got to see bits and pieces of this. It did look like there was a steady rain throughout most of this game. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. And, Harding has not let that become a thing for them. They still put the ball on the turf a time or two, but it hasn't gotten something where they've gotten real sloppy. And, the other teams who are trying to throw it, that's an issue for them as well. So,
yep, no doubt. All right. Well, where do you want to take us next?
Yeah, let's go ahead to the probably the biggest upset of the day, Chuck.
I would say so, and a very interesting watch as well. Justin, I know you had eyes on this one and took another close look at it today. Second time that Newberry went down to Pensacola in the playoffs, and second time they get a pretty sizable upset here, taking out the number 2 seed in the region.
Yeah, they really did. They got up 14 points early in the first quarter, and if you were watching this game, I was one of them. I missed the first couple minutes, and I looked down and I said, "Oh my God. Is a score bug right here? It's 14-0 Newberry. Like, all right, here we go. It's fixing to be a game." And that's kind of what it was. They held a 17-10, lead at the half, and you're like, okay, West Florida, let's see what you come out in. They come out in the second half, they score, they tie the game 17-17. You going into the fourth quarter, and Stokes gets hurt, and he is out. And now you don't have him in the fourth quarter. And you're kind of in the chase from the very beginning is what it felt like when you watched this game. West Florida never really got out early. They never really able to establish, I thought, what was their game. And Newberry, I felt like, was in control most of this game, guys. West Florida kept having to claw themselves back. They tie the game, and you're like, okay, now let's see what you do. Stokes gets hurt. And then you felt like you're back in the chase for the rest of the game if you're West Florida. Interestingly enough, Sharpia there, he was at times, I felt like he was going for his life. Like he was rolling around, just chucking the ball.
Every drop back. He's running for his life every drop back.
Protection-wise, there just wasn't a lot of protection up front for him, and he was just scrambling and making plays. Kudos to his receivers in the scramble drill, just getting the ball out and making things happen. The running backs, the run game for Newberry was not there. It wasn't there all day, guys. They got held for negative 32 yards in the run game. I don't know that I've ever seen a team get held for negative 32 yards in a run game and win a football game. And Newberry figured it out. And I feel like that's been Newberry all year, guys. They have found ways to win. It has not been pretty. It's been gritty, and they have just chugged along and got it done. And like I said, Marcus Stokes was 13 for 21, had 1 touchdown, the 2 interceptions, and was knocked out there in the fourth quarter, and we didn't see him. The run game for West Florida I felt like was pretty electric, though. They were getting the running backs were getting to the second level. They were getting there in a hurry. They ran the ball 42 times. They tried to establish a run because Newberry tried to take away that pass, and they just couldn't get it done. And interestingly enough, West Florida was pretty balanced, whether it was in the air or on the ground. 214 in the air, 213 on the ground. Was pretty balanced offensively. Newberry 416 in the air. So looking ahead to next week's game, they're going to Albany State's going to have a lot to handle with Newberry in that passing game and being able to keep Sharpia, just get him off balance and get him on the ground, containing him in the pocket and not letting him outside. But big win for Newberry on the road. Not an easy place to play, right? I think there's a lot of people who are sitting there saying, hey, West Florida is going to have their way and kind of looking forward to next week. And that just wasn't the case. Newberry went into a tough environment, a tough place to play where they've won before and came away with a gritty win.
Yeah. Tony, as you were kind of tracking all the games going on yesterday, was this one where you kind of feel like you're waiting for West Florida to make the play or make the drive that just kind of gets them going and it just never happened?
Yeah, 100%. And I think they tied it in the third quarter. And when you watch that drive, you kind of just felt like, okay, here we go. And here we go. Never came and went. I guess is a simple way to say it. And you can't understate, Stokes getting knocked out. Obviously they had to go pretty much the whole fourth quarter without him. And that rhythm that they had started to establish, it's hard to do that when you got to go ahead and sub out your quarterback. But I was shocked too when I started really examining the game and to see minus 32 rushing yards. I mean, there were a couple of sacks that figured into that. I think didn't Sharpie have one where he fumbled a snap or something and it rolled back or whatever. Yep. But I mean, still, when you can't run the ball, and I mean, you could tell that Newberry basically just abandoned the run. I think they only ended up having like 14 or 15 attempts on the game. I mean, it was basically they got to the point they just said, bag it. You know, let's just keep chucking it. But, you know, that's a credit to them and maybe a question mark about West Florida's defense heading into the offseason that they're not going to run it, and yet you can't stop it when they're throwing it. So, yeah, it was impressive. I really thought, again, I'm with you, Chuck, that I thought at that point it was here we go, and the here we go never came.
Yeah. Reed Sharpia did actually run for a lot of yards. It's just that all of them were behind the line of scrimmage. It was a really, really interesting day for him and a big time performance there. And yeah, I thought that at the end there, when West Florida was kind of down to their last drive, they actually did move the ball a little bit with their backup quarterback, but they were facing a 4th and 2, in plus territory. And they kind of opted for a play that was not a high percentage throw. They went to the end zone. I really kind of thought they would have given that quarterback more of a high percentage play just to move the sticks and get a fresh set of downs. But obviously they went with whatever the check is in that particular moment. But, and then Newberry was able to kind of run out the clock after that. So second win in the playoffs over West Florida for the Wolves, and they'll move on to the regional final at Albany State. And we'll go there in just a few minutes. So Whit, let's move on to our next game. There's a couple shots of the Wolves. Beautiful day there in Pensacola. Nice to see everyone in short sleeves. I don't think that was the case up in your neck of the woods, though. nor at Ferris State. So
it was not here. I can tell you that.
Not in Big Rapids as well. So Tony, we'll kind of stick with you because I know you had eyes on this. It was I was texting with Whit when it was I think it was 14-0 Ashland, and we were kind of saying, well, if you're going to beat a team like Ferris or Harding for that matter, surviving the first quarter is a big deal. And Ashland did that, but then we saw how quickly Ferris can turn a game.
Right. And I think you almost have to extend it out to say, okay, it's the idea behind survive the first quarter is you have to survive the first punch. And I think you probably almost have to think about it more in terms of, okay, you got to survive the first punch, and then you got to survive the counter punch. And that's really what Ashland wasn't quite up to in this game. And Whit and I talked about this pretty extensively when we previewed this on the Region show. One of the things that we felt like Ashland might try to do was run the ball and see what they could do to limit the number of possessions. And they succeeded in that to a certain extent. I mean, Ashland ended up rushing the ball for over 300. I think they hit either 300 right on the nose or got just over 300 yards rushing in this game, which, not a lot of people do that to Ferris State. And so they were successful to a certain point, but you also have to be able to cash in on those drives, and you got to find a way to get at least some stops. And that pretty much didn't happen. So, I mean, like I say, once, Ferris got through that first quarter and a punt or two that they had, they pretty much scored almost every time they had the ball after that. And just to give you an idea, too, of how successful Ferris can be with either the punch or the counter punch, 8 different Bulldogs scored the 8 touchdowns in this game. I mean, so they come at you from so many different angles and with so many different weapons. And, over the course of 60 minutes, despite Ashland's great start and despite the fact that they were effective in the one phase of the game, the Ferris still just overwhelmed them.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of fascinating because, 1 week ago, we saw that Ashland defense just manhandle a very good Minnesota Duluth team.
Yeah.
And you go on the road to Ferris, and it's just a totally different story. It's just a very difficult defend.
Different level of speed. That's, I think, the biggest thing that you could see the difference was.
Yeah. Yeah. Whit, I know you had eyes on that game early on as well. Did you think when Ashland was up early, do you think, okay, they've got a chance here, or did it still feel like this is still just a huge uphill battle?
Well, they were offensively, they were controlling the line of scrimmage early. They were making holes, and they were doing a great job of getting yards. Quarterbacks end up getting nice yards on, when they need 3, they're getting 4 or 5. And my thought was, okay, they're going to run behind this good offensive line right at Ferris and see what happens. And they had some success with it. Maloney got loose for a long score. And all of a sudden when Ferris made them go ahead and have some tough third down plays, and they started turning the ball over a little bit, Cam Blair gets picked off and Ferris goes and scores right after that. I felt like that was a real big turn in the ball game. And all of a sudden Ferris, when you take a look, Ferris is down 14-0. Then they go on a 49-3 run.
Right.
Just your typical 49 to 3 playoff run. I mean, wow. And I mean, it's different if you're playing teams that have 1 or 2 wins on their season by the time the year ends. But this is against an Ashland team that's solid. It just shows how good Ferris is and how they can hit you with that blitzkrieg. And I mean, then they start to figure you out a little bit defensively. And Chase Carter can make plays with his feet. Then he goes ahead and finds different guys in space. Brady Rose catches a ball near the sideline, makes a move, and then all of a sudden he's off to the races on, I believe, his one catch. And these guys have so many weapons they can hurt you with. I mean, it's like where do you try to stop the bleeding with them? And you got a chance to see that again, I thought, on Saturday. And I'm sure Ashland just kind of walked away like, I mean, what more could we have done at that point?
Yeah.
So
end of the season for the Eagles, but it was, again, as with Pitt State, a great season for them, a very successful one. They finished with a share of the GMAC championship. Of course, opened the season with the big win over IUP, which they had never done before. Got the very memorable playoff win over Minnesota Duluth. So great season overall for the Ashland Eagles. And we will now go to Super Region 2. There's some of the fine weather there in Big Rapids on Saturday. Let's I'm getting cold already. Let's go to Georgia. So we had Albany State and Benedict, third time that they met this season. All 3 games have been a little bit different, I would say, K-Ferg. And this one came down to the very end. Actually, Benedict had a shot to tie this late with the 2-point conversion. But, once again, a very competitive game. One that Benedict probably could have won with a little bit more offense. I think we can see they're only 186 total yards, but their defense really kept them in this one.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about Benedict's defense, 6 sacks. Albany did not have a great day converting third downs, and struggled at times there. And it's kind of similar to what Albany experienced, last week. They rack up a lot of yards, but they don't have a lot to show for it, and they had even less this go around. They weren't as productive on the ground either. I feel like when Albany's really really rolling, it's because they're doing a lot in rushing, but they only had like 92 yards of rushing, so they were really dependent on Isaiah Knowles to get the ball in the air. And again, it's against a very familiar opponent. Each time that these teams have played, it's been that gap's gotten more and more narrow. So you almost wonder, like, if they played a 4th time, maybe Benedict would win that one. But yeah, it's one of those games where it's hard when you're playing, someone so familiar and they kind of know what you can do, and but in the end, Albany finds another way to win and so, to stay alive. And yeah, Benedict's offense, they just couldn't pass the ball. They completed eight out of 27 there for 46 yards, with another quarterback, and just couldn't get much going there.
So the season ends at 10-3 for Benedict. Overall, again, a successful season. Made it to the SIAC championship game. All 3 losses to the same team. I'm sure that really hurts like heck, but a big moment with the playoff win from last weekend, and they left us with one of the most memorable single moments we've ever seen in the D2 playoffs. So congrats to the Tigers on a great season, and of course, Albany State as a number 1 seed on to the regional championship, and they're going to host Newberry. We'll talk about that towards the back half of the show, but I think that is a really interesting matchup that we'll dive into. So let's go back to the Midwest. We had Minnesota State going to UIndy. Really interesting contest here. The Mavs, again, just kind of finding ways to prevail here on the road. But this one got very dramatic in the late stages. If I recall, Mankato had a 2-touchdown lead in the fourth quarter, and then things got pretty crazy towards the end of this one.
Yeah, second straight week, Mankato's been up 21-7 at halftime, and kind of felt like they had this game in hand. But at the same time, knowing that Gavin Sukup and company have a lot of good team speed and can strike quickly, like we saw, in their opening round contest in the playoffs. So, Mankato frankly bullied them in the first half and really physically handled Indy in that first half. I mean, even the announcers were kind of speaking to some of that. And very one-sided, other than a kind of breakaway touchdown where Mankato thought that they had the runner stopped, and he came out of a pile and went 65, 70 yards for a score, and they were down 7-0. But after that, they kind of were the team. And then in the second half, Mankato gets the ball right from the kick, and you're thinking, okay, they're just going to salt this away. Well, they get stopped right there, and UIndy was the better team in the second half of the football game and came on and forced a few punts. Mankato had a short fourth down where they got the yards, but then fumbled the ball. Mitchell Thompson, one of his few mistakes so far through 2 weeks, and all of a sudden UIndy's building on back, and they're about to tie the game, Chuck, 28-all, and they decide that they're going to go for a trick play, and they're going to go ahead and kind of run almost a little bit of a backside option off of the extra point play, and Gavin Sukup is holding, and he catches the ball, gets up and goes to run, and basically gets bum rushed by Mankato. I'm sure it looked good against the scout team, but it looked horrible in a football game.
And just to articulate that, Sukup is the holder. He took the snap and then pitched it to the kicker. So we're now putting the game in the hands of the kicker to run around the end. Poe, I kind of wanted to get your perspective on that because you have a lot of experience coaching special teams. When you run a play like that, obviously you're not expecting your kicker to out execute it like a defensive back at Mankato. That's all built on catching them off guard, right?
Yeah, your thought process is, hey, they're coming to make the block. They're staying inside. You could get the edge because they may be lazy off the edge, or eyes may stay inside, whatever it may be. There's something you've seen on film that you're like, hey, we can get the edge. It's an easy play for the kicker because we also don't want him to get teed off on coming around the edge with a defensive end or like a linebacker or corner coming off on it. So, yeah, it's typically something you've seen in your week of preparation in the film that you may be able just to catch him sleeping and sneak one in.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm all for going for two in that situation. And also, it's not like there was seconds left on the clock. Mankato was going to have, a minute and a half or something like that to get down the field, even if Indy gets the 2 points to take the lead there. I'm all for going for two in that situation, but I think if I've got one of the best offensive players in the country, I'd probably want to put the ball in his hands and just keep my offense on the field. But, also I have to say that the defender for Minnesota State, I mean, he just made the play. He was expecting it. He executed. Indy did not seal the edge, and he made the play. So huge congrats to him. I picked UIndy in this game. I felt that they would have enough athletes to match up. I don't know that necessarily was the case, but it was a really good rally in the second half to get themselves back to a position where they could potentially tie this game.
Well, Chuck, in addition to that, Chuck, and our guy AC makes a comment here that I thought is very worth talking about. Bemidji State defensive end Marcus Hanson from the last few years, an All-American, went to Mankato and has frankly just not had the kind of season he was wanting to have. Had 3 sacks in this contest, had an interception last week on a tip ball. He's really shown up for them quite a bit in some big moments here in the playoffs, and I wanted to go ahead and kind of point that on out. And at the end of the day, I thought that, and I thought Sam Backer for Mankato, between catching passes and the run plays, he touched the ball 27 times for 163 and 3 scores, and I thought was really their pulse offensively in this game. It was a big deal. And Mankato, once again, Coach Hoffner and company, they find a way to keep this rolling in the playoffs. And Chuck, for those tuning on in for the regional shows, we will have Coach Hoffner on Tuesday night. So set your watch accordingly. Ferg, don't be trying to make a run in. Don't be trying to make a run in for your boy, Ferg.
Ferg will be in the comments, I'm sure.
Bad girl.
Ferg's going to try and throw up in the green room. What are you talking about?
Hey, go for it, man. Go for it. We'll send you the link. Again, another really impressive win on the road for Minnesota State against a quality UIndy team. A pretty dark day. Looked chilly there, right, at Key Stadium in Indianapolis. All right, so we'll go to Super Region 1, Frostburg State 23, California 21. A very tightly contested game the whole way. This was very close. I don't think it was ever more than a touchdown difference the whole way between these two teams. This was really bizarre in that it was a rematch of non-conference opponents from a couple of weeks ago. Remember, they played not that long ago, and that was a California victory, but it was a close game. In that first game that they played, special teams was a huge factor. Carrie and Chris and I talked about this on the regional show. Special teams was a huge factor. It was again in this game as well. Interestingly, both teams had a different starting quarterback than they did when they played before. In case of Frostburg, having Jordan Brooks back made a huge difference. A very efficient day for him. You can kind of see the stat line there, 20 of 25 for 240 and a pair of touchdowns. He managed the game extremely well. And when they wanted to stretch the field, he was really on the money. Frostburg has like 4 or 5 receivers that have like almost identical stat lines. So they have a bunch of different guys that they can mix into the rotation there. A couple of them had really big impact plays. And okay, Ferg, I know that you saw that 1-2 punch in the running game for them the week before with Owen Doyle and KJ Smothers, and both of them really effective again yesterday as well.
Yeah, I mean, just when you talk about balance on offense, it's like you have to cover all those guys, all of those wide receivers, because any one of them can strike and get hot, and then Smothers and Owen Doyle. I mean, the challenge for Frostburg is that you have to cover everyone because everyone can make a play, and I think that's what makes them really special.
No doubt. And actually, I thought their offensive line was really impressive yesterday as well, both in the running game and in pass protection. So they are a handful. It certainly is not an accident that they are in the regional final. They are a handful to stop, and a lot of grit in this game as well. And for California, at times I think they did a good job masking some of their offensive deficiencies throughout the year. They had some problems at the quarterback position, some injuries here and there. They were never really able to insert one of their quarterbacks and just let him take control of the offense. They lost their best running back at the start of the year, Bobby Boyd. He's been out since week 4. And they didn't really have that one guy who was a go-to at the receiver position, which they normally do. They didn't really have that this year, but they had been finding ways to win games. And I think at this point, it just kind of caught up with them that when they really needed to make a play kind of late in this game, they weren't able to do it. And honestly, Tony, you and I were talking at the, in the green room before this, all they needed was like one more short passing play that would have put them into a better position for that final field goal in the last minute, and they possibly win this game, but they just were not able to do it there at the very end.
Well, not only that, but I think didn't Frostburg fumble the opening kickoff, and then Cal ended up with a super short field and didn't get a field goal there either.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, they missed a field goal after the fumbled opening kickoff.
I think you talking about all the different personnel issues that they've had kind of encapsulates the way this game went. And frankly, it was how their game against Virginia Union went last week as well, where they kept getting the ball. They'd get to the other side of the 50, and then they'd find a way to miss a field goal or get behind the chains and have to punt, or they'd fumble, or they'd just do something where it's like they spend all damn day on the other team's half of the field and don't score any points. And you just can't keep beating playoff teams or anybody for that matter if you're gonna do that. And I wonder if I think you're onto something where that lack of consistency in some of those key playmaking positions on offense just finally caught up with them.
Yeah. So a great win for Frostburg State, second playoff win in program history in Division II, and it puts them into the regional final. So we'll have the Mountain East against the PSAC in the Super Region 1 final. Of course, we'll talk about that in just a few minutes. So Whit, let's go on to our next game. This was actually the last game of the day because it started in Mountain Time Zone. Ended up being the longest as well because it went into overtime. Wow. Where to start with this one? I'll let you take it, but there's a lot to unpack here.
Yeah, I'm watching the game, Chuck. It's one of those where I'm finishing out some of the other games. This is our late contest. I got my 3 TV setup going, and that one's kind of off in the corner. And I'm watching UTPB go up and down the field, but they're not getting any points. And they're having some trouble with the kicking game, and they're just not able to go ahead and make things happen in the red zone. And then Western gets a safety on them. Then Western gets great field position after their kick back to them, gets a field goal, and it's 5-0. It's like one of those kind of games. And you're looking at things at halftime. UTPB's outgained them dramatically. Western has only got a few first downs at half, and it's like, okay, where's this game going? And all of a sudden we find ourselves in the fourth quarter, Chuck, and it's a 15-0 game Western, and you're going, okay, wow, this is really going to happen here. UTPB is just not going to get on the board. Well, then they all of a sudden their offense decides that they're going to be a little more crisp, and ball's not hitting the ground very much, and Cannon Gibson's getting cooking. And they're basically throwing almost every down, and he's running when it was time to escape, and he's pretty effective at it. And all of a sudden they score a touchdown, and then Western gets the ball back, and the first play they go to run the ball, and they get hit and fumble, and all of a sudden here comes UTPB, and UTPB they go ahead and they get in a spot where, Chuck, they decide to go for 2 with a handful of minutes left. I'm not sure about that call, but they were they converted on a jump ball, but they had a flag, and then they missed the extra point, but another flag, and they got to be a bit of a schmoz at that point in the game. But they end up going into overtime, and UTPB scores on a real nice play, pass out towards the sideline, and then they don't get the extra point. They're having some kicker issues at the moment, and then Western gets the ball back, and they are just getting stuffed, and they couldn't get anything going in their offense. Then they had a penalty or two, and it just looked like a collapse with what they were trying to do offensively. And guys, I hate to say this, but there's a little bit of that Western was up 2 scores type of feel again, and they didn't find a way to finish. And I think each defeat that they've had this year, there has been some level of aspect to that. But credit to UTPB. You see, they put up almost 500 yards offense and somehow net only 21. But at the same time, they held Western to, just over 200 yards offense. And a bit of a wild one there. But UTPB, I think the better team survived here.
Whit, I thought it was 12-0 in this game for a long time, and I did not feel good about that for Western, because that's 2 quick strikes and it's a totally different game. I remember texting you when they got the field goal to 15-0. I thought that field goal feels big, because now it's 2 touchdowns and you got to get a 2-point conversion in there as well. Yep. And I felt like a 15-point lead was a whole lot different than a 12-point lead. Tony, I know that you were kind of keeping track of all this as well. When they get up 2 scores and a 2-point conversion mixed in there, does it finally start to feel like, all right, Western's going to get out of the second round here?
No, because I think Whit characterized it correctly, that UTPB was kind of moving up and down the field. It's like, okay, at some point the seal's going to break. Okay, and they're going to find a way to get some points on the board, and then we'll see what happens. And I think throughout this game, which it really wasn't a game. I'm going to get the naming rights and sell T-shirts and just call it Flagapalooza, because there were just penalties all damn day in this game.
Yeah.
I mean, even the last play of the game had a penalty against Western where they didn't get the touchdown to tie it. And, it was a very hacked up, weird flow. And just when you think about Western, right? Behind the chains is not where they're living. And so when things aren't running smooth and they're not staying out in front of things, that's not an environment, or that's not a type of game flow that suits them well. So the fact that they were up 12 and then 15-0, to me, was almost miraculous when you look at how well the Falcons were moving the football in this game, and how just disjointed and off schedule Western was throughout it. And that's not how they win football games. So no, I really wasn't surprised that Permian Basin found a way to finally get it going in the fourth quarter. And even at that 15-0, I thought, okay, that's a mountain, but boy, it's not insurmountable based on what we've seen through three quarters.
Yeah. That's why at 12-0, I did not feel good about it at all for Western. When they finally got that field goal and pushed it to 15, I thought, all right, well, it's the fourth quarter. So, Permian Basin's also running out of time here. But the Falcons found a way, and I even said it when we did the picks last week. It's like every time I pick against UTPB in these situations, they seem to come through in a big way, and they did it once again. So congrats to the Falcons. They're on to the regional final after a big rally and a win in overtime at the Mountaineer Bowl. And with that, then we'll go to the final game of round 2. Not real a whole lot to say here, guys. Kutztown kind of just rolled over Assumption. It was an uphill battle for Assumption. We talked about this on the Super Region 1 show. Assumption was already down their number 1 quarterback, Jay Castantine. He's a Harlon Hill candidate. He had been injured in the Bentley game, hasn't played the last couple weeks. Their backup was actually injured at IUP in the fourth quarter of that game. We had some concerns that was a head injury that might keep him from playing in this game as well. That did end up being the case. He did not play, so they had to go to a third string quarterback. I actually think he played pretty admirably considering the situation, but it's just such a tough ask to play one of the top defensive teams in the country on the road. I think one of the things, and we'll talk about this in the pod later this week, but another week where Kutztown gets a lopsided win, and I really didn't even have to ask a whole lot of some of their top players offensively. Worth noting, Jaden Stewart, one of their top running backs, did return. He'd been out a couple weeks.
Right.
He was back in this game. I think he only carried like 6 or 7 times, but was over 100 yards because he went off for a couple of big plays. Judd Novak didn't really have to throw the ball a whole lot. You can see the stat line there, 7 of 13. So didn't ask a whole lot of him throwing the ball, but he showed the extra dimension of his game that we don't always see, but he's a pretty fast player too. He had 125 rushing yards. So Kutztown only ran 46 plays in this game.
Yeah,
Assumption ran 75. So
yeah, they only had the ball like 24 minutes, Chuck.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. It was like 9.8 yards per play. I think when you look at the stats, it's kind of interesting because they only had like 11 first downs or 13 first downs or something like that. And it's because they just kept getting chunk plays and scoring. And, Assumption was able to actually, keep the ball and move it around a little bit, but just couldn't get points out of it. And I think Kutztown was kind of content to just let them, move the ball around and not score and keep their guys on the bench and rested for this coming week. So yeah, another big performance for the Golden Bears, and they get out of it with a huge win. And now they'll have Frostburg coming to town for the Super Region 1 final.
Chuck, I think Judd Novak is probably one of the more underrated signal callers in Division II that not everyone knows about. He doesn't put up big gaudy numbers because that's not their offensive style. They're very much a kind of meat and potatoes. We got 2 running backs. We're gonna pound the football on you. And you know what? In moments like this, it's interesting to see when they feel like they have to lean on him a little bit more in the run game. They especially did it early, Chuck, and then eventually that game just kind of got out of hand. But he's a real good athlete, and a guy to watch out for going forward if you haven't had a chance to see him play. No doubt.
We'll actually come back to that thought at the very end of the show. We're going to talk about the Harlon Hill candidates, and he is among them. So yeah. So that is the recap on round number 2. So we will now make our picks for the regional finals. And before we do that, Whit, give us the latest from our friends at Boss's Pizza and Chicken.
Yeah, Boss's Pizza and Chicken once again did their turkey feed where folks come on in and they go ahead and take care of them for them. And I want to really give them kind of kudos on that. That's something that's been a long ongoing thing with their business. Real good heart for the people that we do business here with at D2. But, going one step further, if you're all done now with your turkey and all your leftovers and you're kind of sick of all that, I tell you, that Italian sausage pizza right up in the middle looks just fine to me right now. I may have to go ahead and make some plans mid-show. Just go ahead and dial it up on my phone, Chuck, and go ahead and get that order in and time it just right. So by the time we're wrapping things up, we can go ahead and have that. That sounds like a pretty good idea, my friend.
All right, I might go for that cold beer there in the top right.
That too. I hadn't thought about that.
That show's conclusion. I might go for that. But, all right, well, let's keep things rolling as we're kind of getting towards the end of the season here. Not as much to go through, but not a whole lot to cover here. Well, I guess we do have to acknowledge K-Ferg 8-0. How about that?
That a baby.
Better late than never.
Oh, I assume that you would have been 8-0 as well if we didn't get your picks.
That's 100% it.
Just totally off the radar. We didn't get your picks, but
just so you know, you are in dead last right now out of the 5 in terms of winning percentage, not just wins, winning percentage. So we just had to give you a little bit of get a little business there. But I know Ferg did good, but guys, I mean, I'm up 5 games here. I mean, is anybody going to catch me here? Going in the 7 games left.
I only have 7 games left.
Mathematically, it's looking pretty tough.
Doesn't look good. Doesn't look good.
This says how bizarro a world it is if I'm up this much on the rest of the group here, because I have a bad history in this pick segment. But Ferg, you got me. Newberry beats West Florida right there. That was one of the games I felt better about, and here we are.
Here we are. All right, get that off the screen. Let's go to the matchups for. We'll just go in order 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we'll start with Super Region 1. Whit, this is kind of your segment to run. So take us through it.
Chuck, with the I like the handoff there. It's like I'm running a jet sweep, but I'm trying to get the corner, guys. Ferg, no need to comment on that. Ferg, no need to comment on that.
Hammies.
You're going to need several kick-out blocks to make that happen.
You know what? I'm expecting my guys to take care of business.
It's going to work.
Tony, I just need to take care of the corner. I can handle the cornerback, but
all right.
It's going to work like that 2-point play.
Yeah, the old Indy fake kicker.
Yes. Ferg, I'm starting with you. Frostburg did you right. Are you staying with Frostburg here to go ahead and continue staying hot?
Well, Frosty has a lot to hang their hats on here. They've got the line play, I think, to kind of work with Kutztown. They've got a lot of pieces to work with on offense as well. But man, I guess what I would just say is let's just go ahead and get this out the way. And hey, I'll take all the Frostburg hate mail, and I'm going to still stick with Kutztown on this one. I just think that they're just going to be. I think they're going to be the better team here. I think they're definitely a well-oiled machine, and nobody's been able to slow them down enough to take them down. So hard to go with the undefeated here to go against them.
So did you officially take Frostburg there? I got confused with all the back and forth.
Okay.
Tony, who do you have, my friend?
Yeah, that route was definitely circuitous. I kind of like the idea of Frostburg in this game. I think Chuck has it right that getting Jordan Brooks back and having him kind of running things is making a big difference for them. I think my concern would be, he was 20 of 25 yesterday, and they still, had to sweat a last second field goal to beat what I would only classify Cal as a somewhat schizophrenic team on offense. And you're not going to get any of that kind of help from Kutztown. So this seems like a neat spot for Frosty. I'm still just having a hard time getting myself to it. So I'll take Kutztown.
Fair enough. Coach Poe, how do you see this one?
Yeah, I just think Kutztown has a lot of momentum right now. They're only giving up 10 points a game, and I think they're just it's a tough place to play. Give me Kutztown in this one.
Well, you know what? Before we get to Chuck, since I do have a nice lead, I'm going to go ahead and take Frostburg State in this one. I like what I've seen with them in the run game, but yet able to still throw the football. I feel like this is a spot where they're playing with house money at this point. Kutztown may very well blow them out, like Kutztown has blown out everybody so far in the big games. But you know what? I'm going to go ahead and roll the dice here on Frostburg State. Chuck, now that I've shocked you, where are you going with this, my friend?
Yeah, well, I'm going to pick Kutztown in this one, and obviously we're going to talk about this later in the week on the SR1 pod. So I'll save most of my commentary for that, but I will say tonight, Frostburg State is definitely going to be the most well-rounded team and the most complete team that Kutztown has played all year. So I do think it's a significant challenge. I don't expect to blow out. I think this probably will be a close game, simply because Frostburg State does a lot of things really well, and that's exactly what Kutztown is and how we define them as well. So I do think this is going to be a close game, but I will take Kutztown for the win.
Yep. And Newberry going ahead and traveling to Albany State. Guys, I think this is probably the one that if you went ahead and took this to Vegas, this would be the tightest game in terms of a spread. I mean, maybe even a pick 'em. So as we take a look here, Newberry just coming off of West Florida. Albany has not lost to a D2, been red hot. Something feels like it's got to give here. Ferg, we're starting off with you, buddy. Do you think Albany's got enough in this one, or do you think Newberry stays hot?
I do like what Newberry's able to do in a lot of ways, but I am going to go with the Golden Rams at home.
Fair enough. Tony, how do you see this one?
I've actually rolled with Albany State throughout this tournament. And I don't know. Part of me feels like that's worked out well, and yet I don't know, man. It seems like there's a certain element of, you look at the two wins that they have, it seems like there's a certain borrowed time element to some of this with them. And I just don't know if Isaiah Knowles can match Reed Sharpia throw for throw over the course of 60 minutes in this one. And so I realize going back on the road and getting another win over a sturdy opponent's a big ask out of Newberry, but I think I'm going to take the Wolves here.
Okay. And as Tony just mentioned, we have two quarterbacks here with Reed Sharpia and Isaiah Knowles, who are both nominated for the Harlon Hill, two top performers here in D2. Poe, I'm going to you next. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, this is interesting because I want to take Newberry in this game, but I think the lack of run game on Saturday is nerve-wracking, and asking Sharpia to do what he had to do, just scrambling around, it's not sustainable offensively. You've got to you got to hang your hat on something, and I don't know what that is right now. And I think the defense for Albany State is going to be able to take a look at that film from Saturday and do, be able to come up with a solid game plan. If they can hold them, if they could stop that run game and force Sharpia to have to extend plays with his feet and do some of that stuff, I like Albany State's chances. But I think you want to go with Newberry, but I don't have a lot of confidence in them. I'm going to take Albany State, and it's purely because I have too many questions with the run game of Newberry. I don't think you can live on just chucking the ball around and hoping it works. I do think Newberry has found ways to win, and I want to find a way for them to win this one, but I just don't see it happening if they can't run the football. So give me Albany State.
Well, Poe, Albany State is in the top 10, I think it is, in sacks nationally. They average over 3 a game. You got a feeling that maybe they're going to have Sharpia running around like we saw just this last week, which, I mean, they found a way to win. But, Chuck, how do you see it?
I really like this matchup. I think it's fascinating. It's probably going to be the best game of the weekend. For whichever team wins this, it's going to be a massive accomplishment to win the region and get into the semis. So I'll feel good for either team with that accomplishment. I'm going to go Newberry here. I really like how they have been able to win close games in the fourth quarter against quality opponents. They've been doing that all season long. I think this will be a close game because I really like this Albany State team. I think they have the defense that we've kind of associated with them going back several years, but they've got a little bit of pop on offense as well. They're a dangerous team. They're going to be a really tough out, but I just like how Newberry's been winning close games late. So I'm going to go with the Wolves here on the road.
I'm also going to go with Newberry here. I feel like them coming out of the SAC, I thought it was had a pretty strong conference in terms of that upper half, where I thought they had some nice depth there. And for Newberry to come out the way they did out of that, I think they're very much battle tested. And I'm going to go ahead and take them in this game. But I'm not surprised we're split on that, guys, because I think we all kind of see that as the top game, the top competitive contest this week. Ooh, Minnesota State trying to go ahead and, see how far they can make it this time around in the tournament. Last year, they won 3 playoff games, if my memory serves me right, before they came up short at Valdosta in the semifinals. Now they're traveling around earlier to Ferris State. A game, guys, where it feels like this is not a matchup we're used to seeing. I can recall Ferris back in the J. Rue Campbell era went and won at Mankato in a good game. Back in the late teens.
Yeah, mid-teens, something like that.
Yeah,
mid to late.
So, but I'm going to start off with Ferg. Ferg, you're going to be tested here, Ferg, with your allegiance. about this much. Now, don't let Coach Hoffner's coming on with us Tuesday. Don't let that sway any of your thinking here, or the fact that UIndy was actually mentioning in Hoffner We Trust on the broadcast.
Oh.
Ferg, you can take your victory lap there. But Ferg, it's now time for you to go ahead and make your pick here. No pressure at all.
Well, we all know what Ferris is. But I think one of the things that really stands out to me is there have been some instances where they've gotten off to some slow starts. And the one thing I've liked about Minnesota State is that they've seemed to take advantage of those opportunities. Can they hold on? That's going to be the question. And, we've seen that time and time again, dating back to last year.
Ferg, you have us going on every word right now. It feels like there's a swerve coming here, but carry on.
No, I think that Ferris is the favorite, no doubt about it. But I am going.
Ferg, we figured that out 10 minutes ago. Come on now.
I'm going down with the ship.
All right.
In Hoffner We Trust.
All right.
My phone is going to start blowing up here in a minute. You know what? Ferg's sticking to his guns. Ferg 8-0 last week. Who can question it? Tony, you might question it. You're gonna go ahead and tell me we're gonna go two for two on Mankato here.
The K Ferg word of the day is circuitous. No, so hey, look. We talked about how Ashland had a good plan to try and shorten the game and see if they couldn't run the ball and be physical against Ferris. And they succeeded in that. Minnesota State is a whole other animal in terms of their ability to control the trenches and to shorten the game and be really effective with that run game. I mean, guys, they had the ball for 35 minutes and were 12 of 18 on third down at Indianapolis yesterday. Now,
right.
I'm not going to try and confuse Indianapolis's defense with Ferris's defense. At the same time, if there's anything that Ferris has shown a little bit of not a weakness, but just that defensive side of the ball has had some injuries and some moving parts and just a few things where it has not been dominant at times. And that's the thing. If teams can kind of possess the ball on them, that's the one spot where they can really do well. So I think this game is actually a little more interesting on its face than maybe a lot of other people are gonna think. With that said, while I think the world of Gavin Sukup and what Indianapolis has offensively, and I have what Ferris has. So the idea that the Mavericks can keep that team off of the scoreboard for 60 minutes just seems really, really stretchy to me. To me, the only way Ferris loses this game is if they have just, one of those turnover games. And they're prone to having them. They have them every once in a while. If they don't have one here, I still think they're going to win the region. And so I'll take Ferris.
Understood. By the way, we've got shout out to Barney Guyette, whose son Grant Guyette is the top wideout on Mankato. He's tuned in. I've met him a few different times at games. And Barney, I appreciate you tuning on in with us. So, Justin, I'm moving on to you. All of a sudden feels like pressure picks here. I didn't feel that was going to happen on this, but we have them. Coach Poe, do you feel a little bit of coming back on the back of your neck a little bit? Do you feel that?
No, I'm not scared, Whit. I don't know about you. I'm not scared. No, this game's intriguing, guys. And I look at it and you sit here and there's every reason we're going to say Ferris State should win this game and Minnesota State shouldn't, right? Like we all agree that probably the sexy pick here is Ferris State. I think there's a couple things that I get hung up on when I look at this. And I look at two things. You got Coach Hoffner, which is he's been there, done that, got the T-shirt, and they battled through injuries. He's got them prepared. And this game, a big game on the road, doesn't matter. It's not going to phase them. They're going to prepare like they do for anybody else. So I think in the preparation side of things, they're there. What is intriguing to me is they've been on the road. This is the third playoff game. Mm-hmm. And I think when you have a team that had to battle some injuries and you feel it and you start building that team back up, let's say, and you start building the camaraderie of that team, when you go on the road, it galvanizes you. It can bring you together. And actually, I think it's the opposite of that. I think it brings you together because you're on the road, you're on those buses, you're on the planes, you're in the hotels together. It's eat, sleep, and breathe football when you're together, and it builds those relationships and it can bring teams together. I think that can carry over to a big game like this because you've developed those relationships amongst the team and that brotherhood, so to speak. So I like Minnesota State in this one. I think they can pull the upset. I'm going to take that. I think there's a lot of positive factors trending for them. So give me Minnesota State in this one, guys.
Just to make sure everybody is up to speed with where we're at, we have 2 picks for the Mavericks and 1 pick for the defending champion Ferris State Bulldogs. I'm sure this won't make any bulletin boards, but
why are you going to say it like that?
Coach Poe, you and Berg might be on a graphic.
I think we already know which pick.
Right.
Well, Chuck, you're going to make it 3-1, aren't you?
No, look, if anybody can come up with the game plan and if anybody can execute at this point in the season, it's Minnesota State. So I absolutely give them a chance to go and compete and possibly even pull the upset. You mentioned Grant Guyette for the Mavs. He's got a great season for them. Man, I really wish they had Trayshawn Watson for this game. What a difference maker he could be in this matchup. Unfortunately, He's been out since midseason. I certainly give him a chance, but I don't think that this Ferris State team is unbeatable. I think they're exceptional. I don't think that they're unbeatable. And I think the Mavs could be a team that can come up with a game plan to do it. That said, we talked about this is what 4 road trips in 5 weeks. I know Poe kind of talked about how that can be an advantage and it's galvanizing, but at a certain point that takes a little bit out of you as well. And I think that can be a factor here. And Ferris hasn't had to leave home for a while, so yeah, I give him a chance, but this still feels like a Ferris State win to me.
Yeah, I have some of that same concern about the fact that this will be their 3rd flight in 3 weeks, and I kind of feel like at some point that does start to weigh on you here. Now with the snow and all that stuff, I mean, certainly both of these teams are going to be very accustomed to that. And it looks like the weather up there in Tony's part of the world, Michigan, is not going to get a whole lot better this week. So I think the speed of Ferris is the single biggest difference maker in this contest. Minnesota State just does not see teams that move like this in the Northern Sun, if I'm going to be really frank. And, they saw some good team speed with Indy at the skills and were able to overcome that. But I think Ferris State's team speed is just going to end up being too much at the end. But you know what? Very, very interesting contest for all the reasons I thought Tony mentioned as well about how Mankato is you know, this is a team that is very, very playoff sound and understands all of this. They saw some speed last year in Valdosta, and they didn't blink. They hung around in that football game, but Valdosta was just a little bit too much. I think Ferris State will be too much this time around as well.
And this, to add on to that, this might be the best O-line play that Ferris has seen all season. I think that's a fair characterization when you really look at everybody that they faced. Pitt State wasn't Pitt State really in that first game, and there were a few other teams that were working through some kinks and whatever else. I think this is going to be the biggest challenge that the front sevens had for Ferris's defense.
Yeah, I would agree. Ooh, our final game, UTPB, going to go ahead and make the trip down to Harding. Some people thought this was going to be a first-round matchup, and then the whole thing with the flights started to materialize, and you can see that Permian Basin heading to, Pueblo was not going to be a flight, and that fit the piece of the puzzle perfectly at that point for everything else. Now, guys, we've got a hot Permian Basin team coming on into a has not cooled off all year Harding team. So let's go ahead, Ferg. I'm starting with you. How do you see this one?
I would just like for everybody in the audience to bow their heads and let us pray because I just think that Permian Basin is probably going to need some of that against a team as hot as Harding has been. I'm not going against the Bisons on this one, mainly because I think that the defense is definitely going to be slowing down UTPB quite a bit.
So you called your shot in that last game and you said, I'm not doing this 2 games in a row. We're going to go. I understand that, Ferg. Understand. You're going to be taking enough grief just for that pick in itself. We know how this works. So, okay. So, Tony, I'm coming to you next.
So I love the work that Permian Basin's done thus far. I just think trying to stop the flex bone is just such a whole different animal. It's just, I don't care how good your rush defense is, all these other things. It's just not the same as what you're going to see any other week of the season. And then to see one of the best teams ever to run it and try and figure out how to stop it. I just don't know how that plays. And so I think the job that Coach McCullough has done getting this team rolling here at the end of the season is nothing short of phenomenal. I just don't know that they're going to get enough stops. I think they may actually score a few more points than what Harding is used to seeing. I just don't think they're going to get enough stops. So I still think Harding wins.
Fair assessment. Coach Poe, how do you see it?
Yeah, I've been bit every time I pick against UTPB. And I don't know. I look at this game and I'm sure everybody in the region prepares to some degree to stop what Harding does, whether it's in spring ball, whether it's in, bye weeks during the season, but they're going to practice.
Keep in mind, I'm going to stop you for a moment, Poe. Something we have not mentioned is they play an option team every year. They play Eastern New Mexico, or I think that's who it was, right? That runs the flex bone as well. So they see that every year and do prepare for it. But I think the question is probably a different game speed and execution there would be a notable difference. But I'll let you carry on, Poe.
Is Coach Bryles going to keep the flex bone at Eastern New Mexico?
That would be interesting.
That would be interesting.
Yeah, he's Coach personnel, but I think he's going to go pass happy instead. But that's another story.
All right, sorry, Poe. Let her rip.
Yeah. Anyway, like I was saying before, Witt decided to.
Just helping you out there.
Well, but to your point, like they practice it. I'm sure they practice it in the off season. I'm sure they practice it in spring ball. They practice it during a bye week, and then they practice it when they play. That being said, it's a lot different to practice it and to run it at full game speed at what Harding does and as quick and as flawless as they can run it when they're clicking on all cylinders. Mm-hmm. That is something you can't practice unless you actually do it day in and day out. It's going to be very, very hard to stop. I think the defense for Harding is really dang good. I think they're not afraid to come hit you. They're gonna play in your face and they're gonna make you make mistakes. And so I'm gonna take Harding in this one. I think UTPB will score, but I think Harding's gonna be too much at the end.
Chuck, how do you see it?
Well, I mean, I do think that UTPB can create some matchup challenges for Harding. I don't think Harding has faced very many teams that can push the ball down the field through the passing game as well as the Falcons can. I think back to probably about mid-season when Harding played Southeastern Oklahoma, of all teams. Savage Storm actually had some receivers that could go up and make contested catches, and they pushed the ball down the field with some success in that game. Now, they weren't able to score a lot of points, but they did have a little bit of success moving the ball down the field, throwing. And I think that UTPB will be able to do that as well. I think that they will have some success scoring, but just to come up with enough stops to keep pace with Harding is a huge challenge. And to go on the road and not have a whole lot of time to install your game plan for that, it's just such a tough ask. So I got to go with Harding for the win.
Yeah, Chuck, that's some of the same thoughts I have, is that, when you take a look at the last team outside of Ferris to go ahead and really give Harding a test in the playoffs, it was Central Missouri being able to score a fair amount of points. They had a low scoring game with Grand Valley, at Harding years ago. But I thought that game with Central Missouri was interesting because at times they got out athleted a bit on the perimeter. And I'm curious to see if Harding's able to go ahead and keep up with all of that. If UTPB is able to hit a shot or two, because I think UTPB is going to come out and say, we're throwing every play unless you give us a reason not to. And that's similar to what you saw with UCM back a few years ago with, Coach Lambeau and company. So I think UTB can be a dangerous opponent here. But at the same time, Harding, I think, just has too much. I think, I think this is probably, though, the best matchup we could get at this point, considering I don't think Western Colorado would have been nearly the matchup. I think stylistically that would not have been a game I need to see. Agreed. This game, to me, I think is more captivating in terms of, I think they have more of a puncher's chance in the way that they run their offense. But I still have Harding in this one as well.
And I'll add to this too. I get what Poe's perspective is on a team being galvanized. This is a lot of damn travel that Permian Basin's had these last few weeks.
Sure.
When Harding showed up at Ferris last year, they looked gassed. And right. I'd be really scared that Permian Basin might not have the same thing in this game on Saturday. And I think the same for Minnesota State going to Ferris.
Yeah, well, it'll be interesting to see what version of those teams we get for certain.
Yeah.
But hey, Whit, I just want to mention real quick though, like one of the concerns I would have about everything that you said about offense, it's not going to matter if Harding holds the ball for like 13 plays and
for sure.
Oh no doubt.
Yeah, so that's the only thing I'm thinking about. I agree with everything else you said. I was just thinking about, man, like Harding's just going to play keep away.
Yeah, oh yeah, and they could do that. You're going to need to get some level of some stops, no question about it. And Permian's defense has been very good. I just don't know. This is a different animal. Let's be real frank.
Yeah.
Hard to prepare for on a week's notice.
Yeah.
So those are our four national quarterfinals and regional finals. Let's close the show by talking about the nominees for the Harlon Hill Award. Of course, if you are new to Division II, the Harlon Hill Award is for the Division II National Player of the Year. It is the Division II equivalent of a Heisman Trophy. We like to think it stands on its own, but that's what resonates with folks. So if you're unfamiliar with it, that is what it is. The balloting for this, we'll give you the real quick tutorial on this. Each team can nominate one player and one player only. So I know a few people were questioning certain players that weren't nominated. It was simply because a teammate was nominated instead. There is a little bit of vetting that goes into the nominees. This is published regionally. So the candidates that we're going to walk through are by region. From the list of nominees that we're going to show, there will be two finalists from each region. The voting is actually happening for this now. It's the sports information directors that do the voting. So essentially what that means is that every program gets one vote. The sports information director will cast that vote on behalf of the university. So that first round of voting is regional, and then once we get the national finalists, there will be another round of voting, which will just be national. And then the top vote getter will be the Harlon Hill Award winner. So let's look at this by region, and let's try to get through this relatively quickly. We've already gone a little bit long, but let's just kind of go through for each of the guys to list off who they think the 2 regional finalists would be, if that suits you, Whit. I'll start in Super Region 1. Obviously, Curtis Allen will be one of the finalists here. If he's not, we're going to have to set fire to something. So Curtis Allen would be
Yes.
one of my finalists. And we actually, Ferg and Carrie and I actually reviewed this list last week. I would go Judd Novak as my other finalist here. Whit, you kind of mentioned he's a quarterback who doesn't necessarily have the huge numbers that some of the other quarterbacks will. When you watch him play, the things that he can do on the field for his team, his style of leadership, the types of different plays that he makes, the total package that he brings as a quarterback, I think he's just a really impressive football player. He would be my other finalist.
Yeah, I think, guys, that I think it's a bit of a crapshoot. I mean, I could see Matthew Reevy because his numbers jump off the page, especially in comparison to Judd's. But Judd's still playing and Matt's not, and I'm not real sure who I think will be the next guy. But I would have to favor myself, Judd, as well. But I don't know, because we're also trying to interpret, Chuck, how the SIDs are going to see this. And they're going to look at the stat page, and that's where Judd doesn't really jump off. So I think that's a tough one.
I would just look at this as who would you pick?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I would take Judd myself for sure.
Good. Tony, in Super Region 1, who are your 2 finalists?
Yeah, Allen and Novak.
All right. Poe?
Agreed. Allen and Novak.
All right. K. Ferg, I know that you went a different direction when we reviewed this list last week. Explain your 2 finalists.
Mine was Curtis Allen and J.J. Jordan for what J.J. was able to do, especially for the Rock in some pretty big games, even when they took losses. I mean, he was having some really big games, over 200 yards in a game or two himself. And so, also one of the leading rushers nationwide as well. So that was my 2. But definitely a lot of respect for Novak for what he's been able to do.
Yeah. No, J.J. Jordan, incredibly consistent all year long. And like you said, even the games they lost, it certainly wasn't because they didn't run the ball. Let's go to Super Region 2. So I'll start off here. I think there's just a lot of very comparable players in this list. I would go with Isaiah Knowles simply because of the season he's had, the team success that he has led them to. And why not go with Reed Sharpia, the player that he'll match up with this week, as the other finalist? That would be my 2 for SR2. K-Ferg, who do you have?
Isaiah Knowles and Marcus Stokes.
All right. Tony?
Yeah, I was on Knowles and Stokes as well.
All right. Poe, I know you watch this region really closely. Who are your 2 finalists?
Yeah, I think it's Knowles for what he has done this year. It's just phenomenal. And then the other one is Marcus Stokes. And I don't know that they win that game on Saturday if he plays the 4th quarter. But I think you see when he's not in there how much it hurt them offensively. And I think that's I think Stokes and Knowles for me are the 2 guys in this super region that.
All right. And then Whit, who do you have here?
You know what? I've got Stokes, and then I was looking at Jordan Jackson for a good while. But you know what? I think Isaiah Knowles, if you take a look, I thought that he was the difference in them advancing over Benedict. I'm going to go with those 2 as my 2 selections.
All right. Let's go to Super Region 3. Man, a lot of tough players in this one. This was probably the one where I'd have the most difficult time coming up with my 2 finalists. I'm actually even stalling a little bit just to try to put it out right now.
We'll come back to you, Chuck.
I'd have to go Jack Strand. Just the season that he had. Man, there's a part of me that wants to say Noah Dobert, just the way he played, especially in the second half of the season. But ultimately, I'd have to go with Gavin Sukup as my 2nd finalist.
Fair enough. Chuck, I'm going to go with Jack Strand and Michael Shimmick from Ashland. I really thought that he was simply outstanding for them this year, and I wanted to notice him here. Ferg, I'll let you go from there. What do you got, buddy?
I was gonna go with Jack Strand and Dawson Forgey for what he was able to do with Wayne State.
Yep.
Big
yeah, one of the top running backs in the country, no doubt about it. Tony, who do you got?
Yeah, I think we talked about this on the Region show the other day, and I think I was with you. I had Strand and Shimmick.
Yep, and then Poe, we're running this with you, buddy.
Yeah, I think Strand and Suckup for me are my top two here.
All right,
Chuck, I'm handing it back off to you for the last one, buddy.
Glad to see a defensive player getting some love. Well, it's a tough one because we have 12 candidates somehow in this region, and the others we had 4. You know what? I'm going to go with a defensive player in this region. Tristan Exline has had an outstanding season, probably going to be a candidate for our Elite 100 Defensive Player of the Year. He's just played at such a consistently high level all year long. So I'm going to go with the defensive player there, Tristan Exline. And a player that I just want to recognize, R.J. Martinez, a player, the quarterback at West Texas A&M. You guys, I do the players of the week. That's something I do each week. There were a couple of weeks where he had just outstanding numbers. And it just so happened to be a week where Curtis Allen went off for 300 yards or somebody else had a ridiculous day. But he was really impressive all season long. So I want to recognize R.J. Martinez from West Texas A&M.
Yeah.
Whit, why don't you walk us through the rest and throw it around the room?
Well, you guys know I'm big on special teams, especially the kicking game.
Wait, you didn't even know they kicked until last week.
Oh, man.
You know what? J. Todd Baker.
Your buddy Tom's got it.
You know what? Here it comes, Poe. Here it comes. He averages 45 a punt. He for some reason isn't on the NCAA page, and I think he's reached the minimum number. That's how much I've looked into this, and I'm not picking a punter. But here's who I do have. I agree with Chuck. I've got Tristan Exline. I think that he's a fantastic representative on this page. And man, I've struggled with the other one. I really have. I'm going to go ahead and land on TJ Chukwura. I think he may have been the best wide receiver in the country this year, all around. Ferg can verify one way or the other because Ferg's got all the fantasy numbers behind that. Ferg, I'm going to you next. Ferg, am I barking up the right tree there?
Well, I think with TJ, one of the things is that teams keyed in on trying to stop him, and he still was getting yards, and I think that really makes a big difference too.
Yeah.
This is a tough one for me because the homer in me definitely wants to just jump to RJ Martinez for sure. But I look at what Andrew Miller has been able to do, and I think the other one is Jeffrey Jones at New Mexico Highlands. I mean, he got hurt for a while, so his numbers went down, and he and Curtis Allen were kind of neck and neck for quite a bit of time. But to me, I think those are the two that really stand out. But man, there's just so many good names on this list.
Yes. Yeah. And by the way, as we're looking at it, Brad had asked why there's 12 nominees instead of 8. It's just a matter of who was nominated by their teams. So it looks like there was more of a more engagement here with that nomination process than some of the other super regions. Poe, you have not gone yet, have you?
I have not.
Okay, and then we'll get to Tony after that. What do you got, buddy?
So I think the two guys, and I think first is Andrew Miller, right? Like,
we're only gonna let you do 2 guys. You're right.
Yeah, I can count. I don't know if you know that or not, Whit.
Well, that's one.
Andrew Miller is one.
You need to consult the dragon.
And then TJ is 2. I think both those guys, they know what they're going to do. Their leadership is invaluable to their teams. People know what they're going to do, and they still execute, and that means a lot.
You have to say his name if you're going to bring him forward as a finalist.
Chukwura, come on now.
All right. Good job.
And I think Tony, we did not have you go yet on this super region, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
I think Jeffrey Jones, what he did as a freshman, definitely deserves some recognition for even making this list at all. So I was impressed by that.
No doubt.
I think we haven't talked about them probably because they get talked about a lot during the year, but Kennedy McGill and Drew Nash, their teams probably don't have the seasons that they had without those two guys. Maybe their numbers weren't quite as prolific in certain spots, but those are guys who really led those teams. For a team that really just did not have the kind of season that they wanted, for TJ Chakwara to be able to put up the kind of numbers that he did consistently anyway, despite everybody was trying to take him away, I think was pretty impressive. I'll roll with TJ, and what the hell? I'll take the punter.
and for what it's worth, Chuck, I wouldn't be surprised to see Reggie Ratzlaff make that final 8, given the fact that he's the only finalist from a year ago that's on any of the lists anymore, and he's got a lot of name recognition, scored a lot of touchdowns this year.
And just a very impressive player for all around, for sure. All right, so a couple of things just around. I think we mentioned this before, but Braden J nominated is wild. It was Harding's choice to nominate Andrew Miller.
Yep.
I think they did nominate Braden maybe last year, but they opted to nominate Andrew Miller this year. I think that was a good choice for them and to recognize him. So that's just how the process is. Each team can only nominate one player. So they chose to nominate Andrew Miller. So that is the show for this week. I know there's a lot of chatter in the comments. Whit, did you have any that you wanted to bring up to go through? Q&A.
We wanted to get a close up on you.
Well,
Chuck,
obviously we want to go to
Potty alert.
By the way, real quick, one of our former columnists, Joe Price, stopped on in tonight. Former Lone Star columnist, great guy, and Berg giving you some love right there. No, that was kind of the main one, Chuck, that I thought of that I wanted to bring on up. There's going to be people who are going to talk about the criteria and how we got here to this point in the playoffs, and we're not going to really worry ourselves a whole lot about that about all that stuff right here and now, just because the fact we're in the middle of this playoff thing, we should enjoy it, not necessarily kind of try and refigure everything right now. That's kind of my stance on it at this point.
Yeah, no doubt. I agree with, we have those conversations quite frequently about what the playoff system is. And at this point, we want to focus on the teams and the players that are competing. We'll bring our grievances about what the system looks like or what we think it should look like another time. Same with Harlon Hill. I think there's different ways that could be done. I think there's better ways that could be done. But we want the focus to be on recognizing the players. So we're not going to complain about the process. We're just going to try to acknowledge the players to the best that we can. So that's going to be the show for this week. We have one more round of the regional podcast, so look for those this week. I think we'll have 2 on Tuesday, and then probably 1 Wednesday, 1 Thursday. But we'll circulate all that once we have those plans nailed down. So we'll be covering the games that happened this past weekend in more detail on the regionals, and of course, we'll dive into a lot more minutia on the matchups that we see coming in each of the super regions. Probably talk a little bit more about Harlon Hill. I think we'll get the list of finalists this week, so we may have some opportunities to dive into that and kind of focus just on those finalists as well. So with that, we'll call it a show. Again, watch out for the regional pods during the week, and then we'll see you back here next week to recap the regional finals and get prepared for our national semifinals. So for the gang, I'm Chuck, and we'll see you back here next Sunday night.